Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to Australia once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel quite a few times before. Now, I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last year or so. They are still a relatively new addition to the local beer scene, but they've built up a very good reputation for themselves. And if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're probably best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, but also for their fruity, smoothie, modern, Nordic, whatever we're going to call them, sour beers. They produce quite a few different pastry stouts as well. But the beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I have tried from this brewery before, albeit this one is going to be an Imperial version compared to the normal versions I've had in the past, but I'm quite confident they'll be able to do it quite well. I've heard very good things about this particular beer, and it's also part of a series of beers that these guys do as well, which I'll be keeping an eye on going forward. One of their latest releases here in Hong Kong, and this is one of the breweries that I always watch out for. It's quite interesting things going on in the Aussie craft beer scene these days. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we're going to head down to Australia, like I said. We're going to go to the state of New South Wales, the city of Sydney, and to be precise, we're going to the district of Botany, which is very close to the airport. But yeah, that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Drop Brewing Company. This particular beer is called Calypso Blues. It comes in at 8.3% ABV, and this one is an Imperial double, whatever you want to call it, fruited sour, smoothie sour. So yeah, I do have another one from this blues series that we're going to have a look at. This one contains blackberry, blueberry, cherry, mango and banana, so it's going to be more of a berry sour, this one I guess we could say, whereas the other one in this blues series has more kind of tropical fruits in it. So I thought it would be interesting to look at both and just see, because we haven't reviewed too many Imperial things from the smoothie sour side of this brewery. The last beer we reviewed though from them before the West Coast IPA was the Winwood Hood, which was an Imperial Florida Weisse, which I thought was really nice. And that was one of the things that really kind of triggered my curiosity when it came to this beer and the other one in this blues series. So yeah, let's just crack on with this one then and see how we go. Definitely curious to try something a bit more Imperial from Drop Brewing, who are seriously good at this smoothie sour style. So yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what the beer is going to have in store for us. The Calypso Blues 8.3% Imperial Smoothie Sour. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Drop Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Australian playlist along with a number of other things. That's been added to very regularly, of course, since I've moved here to Hong Kong, because we get a great selection of Aussie beers, which I'm very happy about. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. And if you're particularly interested in Australian craft beer, do make sure you check out my friend Sam Smalley over at Short and Stout Beer Reviews. I'll try to remember to put the link to his channel in the video description below. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Drop Brewing once again then. So, Drop Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Botany, in Sydney in New South Wales in Australia, very close to the airport, and the company was founded back in mid-2016, although they wouldn't open their doors to the public until a few years later in 2019. But the four people behind this company are Clay Grant, Meg Barbitz, Nick Calder-Scholes and Liam Quinn. So Clay has a background in food catering, and he shared the idea with Meg, his wife, that he wanted to start a brewery, and she was very, very supportive of this. And she'd actually worked with a number of tech startups and liked the idea of them having their own startup company together. Nick, on the other hand, is originally from New Zealand, and he was the original head brewer at the Garden Brewery in Zagreb in Croatia, and it was there that he met Meg and Clay. If you're curious to see this place, by the way, check out my Out and About video that I did there. But Meg and Clay were on holiday visiting Meg's family when they bumped into Nick, and things kind of went from there. But Liam, on the other hand, is Nick's best friend, and he was in the army, but also had a lot of experience in the hospitality sector too. But Clay and Meg founded the company officially in mid-2016 when they designed the brand and started planning the business, and they actually sold their house to fund the company, but they also decided to use a little portion of the money to go and visit Meg's family in Croatia, and it was there that they met Nick, who would join their venture in 2018. But the idea behind the name One Drop is that a single idea or action can change the whole course of everything, and that's what they say happened to them with One Drop Brewing Company. But the brewery itself is located in an old paper mill, and they sourced their brewing equipment from the Canadian company DME, who I believe are now defunct. Correct me on that if I'm wrong. But this includes a 12 hectolitre brew kit, and they started out with 6 24 hectolitre fermentation vessels. But this has been scaled up quite considerably since then, from what I understand. They've got a canning line from East Coast Canning in the US, and as of September 2024, they've produced around 415 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd. But like I said to you, they've really built up a reputation of being a very solid New England hazy brewery, and also a kind of fruity, smoothie, whatever you want to call it, sour beer brewery as well. So yeah, if those are style categories that you're interested in, this is definitely one of the breweries that you want to check out. But I've been impressed with the West Coast IPAs I've had from these guys too, so hopefully we can see an Imperial West Coast IPA from them at some point as well. The pastry stouts, they were okay, but pastry stouts are just not my kind of favourite style of beer. But the smoothie sours and the New England IPAs are really pretty top class actually. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about One Drop Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a wee look at the beer itself. That's your history section. So you can see the artwork on this one is quite similar to what we've seen from One Drop Brewing before. You can see the bird got a little bit of a ding there when I was bringing it home, but yeah, you can see the One Drop Brewing Company symbol on the top there. It's a plain black top on the can. I'll point out as well that this one is 440 milliliters. I think I paid like 120 or 130 Hong Kong dollars for this, so that's about £13 sterling, maybe about €13.50, $14 American for the can. Yeah, craft beer is expensive in Hong Kong, especially when it's an Australian import, because I think it's expensive in Australia anyway. But yeah, 8.3% fruited smoothie sour, this one, and it tells you a little bit about the beer on the back here. So let me just read that to you. So it says, Calypso Blues, a fruited smoothie sour. This here is a topped up to the brim keto sour that's been given our full fresh fruit smoothie treatment. Obscene amounts of blackberry, blueberry, cherry, mango and banana are added and backed up in full by kisses of maple syrup, golden syrup and vanilla. Fear not, thirsty traveller, Sugar Daddy has been to sprinkle the goods on top with sacks full of lactose, oats and icing sugar. Don't forget to bring your own spoon, you filthy animals. So it says with this one, we should roll it. So we're going to do that a few times. Roll it, and then also we should flip it a little bit. So we'll do that a couple of times just to see how we go. But yeah, I think after that, rolling it a few times, I think it should be ready to go. So let's get this guy out into the glass and see how we go. I'm very, very curious about this one. I think I've had one red sour from these guys. But most of them have been yellow sours, and I do credit the wonderful Akil of Craftissimo here in Hong Kong for having gotten me on to this this particular brew. You know what, we're just going to put all of it in because it's pouring quite calmly. Actually, very little visible on the bottom of the can there with this one in terms of sediment and things. So I'm quite impressed with that. But yeah, let me just line that up for you so that it's my OCD is happy. But anyway, when you think about the fruits that have gone into this beer, what is it? Blackberry, blueberry, cherry, and therefore there's mango and stuff like that. The colour of this one is pretty much to be expected. So for me being Scottish, the colour, the way to describe this one is like a Heart of Midlothian football jersey, a lovely kind of dark burgundy colour. But I have to say, it does look very, very nice. In fact, the colour of this one looks absolutely great. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few different things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. And in the case of things like, you know, modern smoothie, sour beers, that is going to play a big role. So the fruit in this one is absolutely giving it pretty much all the colour in here. But yeah, you can see that when we poured this one, it had very little head, just a little bit of a kind of thin foamy layer, which has faded away at the moment to be very pretty much nothing. That tends to happen when the beer is Imperial rather than single. The single smoothie sours from these guys hold the head a little bit better, I would say, but one or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass there, and just at the back of the glass I can see a few kind of coming up toward the surface. But yeah, pretty opaque beer, this one, probably because of the presence of the oats and wheat and stuff like that in there, as well as the various fruit purees and stuff that they're obviously using when producing this beer. But yeah, all in all, nothing really surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance. If you know this style, you know this is pretty much what you should expect. So yeah, I think we can move on then and have a wee look at the aroma of this beer. And one thing I'll say before we get onto this part of the review, when it comes to these fruity smoothie sours, very often these beers are quite straightforward in terms of their flavour profiles and aromas, but if they're done well, they're really, really nice beers to drink. So yeah, bear that in mind if you do try something like this. But let's look at it. Yeah, as you'd expect, that's really nice. I'm going to pause the recording a wee second to just blow my nose just to make sure I'm getting all of that, but it is good. 1 second. Sorry about that, guys. Much better. My ears had actually popped and stuff. I think it's maybe the humidity as well in Hong Kong that's doing this. But yeah, yeah, that's much better. That is much better. Yeah, the aroma of this, I wouldn't say that it's too different from the regular smoothie sours we've had from this brewery before, but it's still really, really nice. Like I say, very simple, straightforward flavour and aroma profiles with these beers, but if they're done well, they're great, great beers. So let's have a wee look at this one then. Yeah. Yeah, it's really, really nice. In terms of the in terms of the fruity side of the beer, it's what you'd expect. You know, it's very soft and very kind of juicy. It has a wee bit of sharpness to it, but all in all, it's actually quite. It's actually quite just soft and juicy, as you would expect. I mean, there's no other way to really kind of describe it. So the backbone of this beer, we'll just break the aroma down and describe it more in depth as we always do. The backbone of this beer is quite straightforward. You've got a little bit of that kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. You do of course have a little bit of wood and a little bit of cracker, as you often get with these things, but yeah, there's a little touch of there's a very slight touch of brown bread in there, a bit of white bread as well, but the majority of the aroma coming out of this beer, is more of a, the majority of the aroma coming out of this beer is more like a kind of yogurty type character, you know, like Muller Corner fromage frais, petit filou type thing. It's kind of like that. So the oats and the wheat in these smoothie sour beers often combine to give you this very like sweet yogurty type character. And yeah, the way that this one goes together in that regard is very, very nice. Yeah, it goes together really, really well. On top of that, you know, the big oaty creamy character, that comes out of this one is really, really nice. And that, I think that's the thing that mainly gives this one, combined with the wheat, is what gives you that sort of oaty, you know, that sort of yogurty fromage frais type thing out of it. But you do get little bits of like Werther's Original, butter candy, butterscotch, maybe a very slight hint of biscuit out of it. But yeah, I think the malty base in this one is quite straightforward. In terms of the yeasty side of the beer, for me that lingers at the back of the nose, and it's mainly like a white bready character, like quite a dense white bready note. A little bit of like cracker and wheaty character out of it. So yeah, dense white bready character, a little bit of like crackery, wheaty notes, and a wee bit of bread crust. So yeah, the way that this one goes together, I think, is really nice in that regard. So yeah, I think that's everything we really need to say about the malty and yeasty side of this beer. So now we can move on to the fruity and hoppy side of the beer. The one thing I'm surprised about is that I'm not picking up more of the maple syrup and the golden syrup. The vanilla, in fairness, is, yeah, you do get a little bit of the vanilla if you take the aroma in very deeply, but I think the rest of it is quite subtle in a sense. I'm surprised I don't get more of the kind of the maple syrup and the golden syrup and stuff. But in honesty, I have actually found that when you put these brown sugary type things into these smoothie sours, it kind of suppresses the aroma a little bit in a sense. So yeah, that's a curious thing about this particular beer. But yeah, let's go on to the hoppy and fruity side of things then. So as I've told you in various sour beer reviews before, it's always interesting to talk to a sour beer brewery about their hopping mentality, because what they used to do back in the day with the lambics and the Flanders Reds and things like this was they would add old hops into the beer that had lost a little bit of their alpha acid potency, and the reason for that was that they didn't want the bitterness of the hops to interfere with the sourness of the yeast. Accordingly, many modern sour beer breweries don't actually put hops in smoothie sours like this because they feel that the fruits that they add in are going to suppress the green component anyway. Some breweries do it though to add a little bit more complexity to the flavour, such as like Holy Goat and Vault City from Scotland, whereas, you know, the breweries I encountered in Sweden, Duck Pond and Elm 11, Fermenterna and guys like this, they didn't. One Drop Brewing, I think, don't put hops in their sour beers either. So yeah, it just depends on what the brewer actually wants to do. But regardless, you do seem to get a little bit of a kind of placebo effect with these beers sometimes, and quite often that depends on what fruits you're using. With berries and stuff, yeah, you always get a little bit of this slightly, yeah, you get a little bit of this earthy, woody kind of thing, and you can detect that a little bit in this beer. So for me, there's a little bit of an earthy, woody sort of note to the beer. Yeah, there's a wee bit of that earthy, woody sort of thing going on. Tiny little bit of floral character and a wee bit of grassiness, of course. And yeah, I don't know if there's too much else to say about that kind of placebo green component in this beer, in all honesty. So yeah, I think we can move on and round off the aroma with a wee look at the fruits. So just to refresh my memory, if I remember right, it's blackberry, blueberry, cherry, and what was the other one? Mango and banana added into this one. They do like mango and banana, even with the red sours at this at One Drop. So yeah, it kind of makes sense for this one. Like the blackberry and the blueberry are giving you the sort of sharper side of the berry notes in this one, definitely. So they're coming out in the kind of top of the front of the nose, but you can smell that more oily, cherry juiciness underneath it. The banana is very, very soft underneath, and you can get a little bit of the mango too, but I think the berries are, of course, kind of dominating the aroma of this beer. But yeah, all in all, it's very, very nice, this one. As I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think this is going to be pretty damn good. So yeah, let's leave it at that for the aroma and actually taste this thing. This one is the Calypso Blues, an 8.3% Imperial fruited smoothie sour from Drop Brewing in Botany, Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. This one's brewed with blackberry, blueberry, cherry, mango, banana, maple syrup, golden syrup, and a wee bit of vanilla. This should be really interesting. Let's get stuck in. Sláinte, skål, and cheers. Oh yeah, that's really pretty damn nice, I have to say. Yeah, it's interesting to try this one. Like I said, the key difference between this one and the other ones I've had from Drop Brewing before is that this is an Imperial sour. I have to be honest and say, I don't find that much difference. It might be heavier in booze. I think the brown sugary note is maybe a little bit bigger as well because of the maple syrup and golden syrup and stuff inside it. But the overall vibe of the beer, I really don't find it that different. So yeah, I was saying earlier in other reviews that I would like to try some Imperial smoothie sours from these guys. But yeah, I think it really doesn't make all that much difference. But I will say, once again, and as I would expect from Drop Brewing, this is a really, really damn good beer. So big thumbs up to these guys. I really want to get down to Sydney and actually, you know, film an out and about video at their tap room. That would be awesome. I really like what these guys are doing. So yeah, if you get the chance to try some of the beers, you will not regret it. But let's do as we always do. We'll go through this one and just break it down and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. Middle third of your palate then. So the backbone of this beer, you've got that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. As you go further forward, you do of course have that little hint of woodiness, as you often expect, and then there's a wee tiny touch of cracker. But then above that, there's a very slight wholemeal brown bready note to this one, but quite dense. Then you've got the white bready character coming out of this one, which again, it's quite smooth and quite wet and quite dense. And then you can feel the wheaty bready note of this beer, which is even more dense in a way. So it's very layered. In the bottom layers of this beer, it's very, very layered, and there's a lot of density to it, of course. So yeah. So yeah, the bready character in this beer is really nice. As I say, you've got the brown bread, the white bread, both of which are from the barley malt, and the more dense wheaty note out of this one. You can feel the oaty character sort of coming out on top of that. And for me, in these beers, it's often the oaty notes that give you this big sort of yogurty type thing. And what you'll notice is within that oaty layer, and particularly the wheaty white bready layer, you can really feel the vanilla starting to push its way out of the beer. But the oaty and the wheat character kind of combined in this one are what give you this impression of like a yogurty, like a fromage-free petit filou type flavour. So yeah, the sort of yogurty combination of wheat and oat sit on top of all the kind of drier barley malt flavours in this beer. And obviously this one has the maple syrup and the golden syrup added into it as well. So yeah, the way that all of that goes together, I think is really, really nice. So the maple syrup and the golden syrup kind of sits on top of that oaty, yogurty layer that the beer has. And as I say, that's really nice. You can feel that oily brown sugary character lingering into the aftertaste, but definitely on top of all of that, you can feel this little oily circle there, and it has this Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy note to it. That is the boozy side of this beer, the 8.3%, and then there's a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity note coming out of this one too. The vanilla in this beer, I think, it feels almost as if the vanilla's kind of embedded into some of the oaty and wheaty layers, but maybe also to the kind of white bready side of this one too. So it's really interesting how that pieces together in this particular beer as well. Yeah, really interesting stuff actually, just the way everything pieces together in this one. But like I say, a big thumbs up from me. This beer, like I say, it's not too different from the smoothie sours I've already had from this brewery. But the Imperial thing for me doesn't make that much difference. It's still just as good, but it's not like a massive improvement as I was expecting it might be, in honesty. But still, very enjoyable beer. Although there is maybe a slight difference in the mouthfeel. This one feels more sort of oily and things, but we'll come to that later. So yeah, that's the middle third of your palate covered in this one. Let's go to the back third of your palate. And as I've often said, sweeter flavours will come out further forward, more dry and bitter flavours will come out further back. So, and between middle and back third of your palate, you're going to get very similar flavours, just at different intensities. But yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that little bit of bready build up in there, brown bread in the base, white bread on top, and then a wee bit of like a wheaty white character above that. But then yeah, the base of that back third of your palate, you have some you've got a little bit of like, you've got a wee bit of a kind of a Jacob's cream cracker sitting above the bread crust. Then you've got the brown bready character, the white bready notes above that, and those are both lighter and more airy kind of layers there. Then you can feel the really dense wheaty notes out of this one, and those are very nice and smooth, and a wee bit of the oaty creamy character just creeping over the top there. Yeah, the way that this one goes together in that sense, the back third of your palate is really nice. You've got the yeasty character sitting above that in this one as well. So for me, the yeasty character at its core, there's a little bit of like a sweet, dense, brown bready character in there, and it's surrounded by it's surrounded by more of more of like a kind of white bready character, and then the very edge of it is a little bit like bread crust and cracker and things. So the way that that goes together is really, really nice. So brown bread at its core, white bread around the edge, then a bit more of a bread crusty kind of character in there. But definitely, back third of your palate, the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way that all of that kind of pieces together, I think, is really, really nice. The malty and yeasty side of this beer just goes together really, really well, and one dropper kind of, notorious isn't the right word, but they're very well known for that. Like I said earlier, I was pretty sure this beer didn't contain hops, and from having tried it, I'm pretty sure that I'm right there. It just has a little bit of almost kind of placebo effect. But yeah, the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little touch of earthiness in there, and as you move further forward, it's almost very, very slightly woody in a way. Then as you move further forward from that, it's a little bit floral and a wee bit grassy around the kind of front curve of your tongue. But absolutely, you can feel the fruity adjuncts just pushing against that and sort of suppressing everything in there. But like I say, I'm almost 100% certain that this beer doesn't actually contain any hops, of course. But you know, we've had that before with Drop Brewing. Let's look at the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of things. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again you get that little bit of bready build up in there. You've got the brown bread in the base, the white bread in the middle, and the more kind of oaty, creamy, wheaty sort of thing on top. The base of that front third of your palate, yeah, a little bit of bread crust, a little bit of cracker, brown bread, the barley malt white bread, then the smoother wheaty character and the oatiness there on top. Wee bit of vanilla kind of embedded further back, and then you get that big fruity kind of hit just sitting on top of it there. So let's have a wee look at that. So yeah, on that front third of your palate, you maybe do get the impression, like in the base, of like a bit of banana bread and maybe a wee bit of the sweeter mango, but of course the blackberries, the blueberries and the cherries are the things that really take the lead here. So above that sort of banana bread, I think the mango is a little bit hard to detect, in all honesty, because mango for me is very juicy and very sharp. You maybe get a little bit of it toward the back of that front third of your palate, especially into the aftertaste, but other than that I think it's quite hard to detect. The banana comes out into the aftertaste too, so these tropical notes are very much taking a back seat. But on top of that then, the tropical fruits kind of forming the backbone. You've got the cherry, which is kind of almost engulfing these tropical sort of flavours. And then you've got the blackberry and the blueberry sort of giving you the kind of sharper side of this beer. So the blackberry and the blueberry are the things that really come to the fore in this one for me. So that's really interesting. And yeah, when you take this beer in, yeah, it's all about the blackberry and the blueberry, the sharpness of those. The cherry juiciness comes out a little bit later, and then yeah, you start to notice the kind of juicier mango and the softer banana and stuff underneath. So yeah, I think we've described the fruity side of this one quite nicely actually. Yeah, it goes together really, really well, this beer, and I think it's, like I said, it's a really nice beer to drink. This is a very nice kind of, it's almost like a fruit smoothie in a sense, which is why they call it the smoothie sour. It's a great beer to drink, and I'm going to enjoy the rest of this, we can say that. But yeah, nothing surprising about this one. Just a really, really nicely done Imperial fruity smoothie sour, which is what I know this brewery for. And I already, when I came to Hong Kong, I already liked this style because of like Elm 11, Fermenterna and Duck Pond and things, the Swedish breweries that were doing this. But the One Drop stuff is very, very good. So yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour of this beer. It's really, really nicely done, and the vanilla and the sweetness, I think, of this one comes out into the aftertaste too. So let's round off with a wee quick roundup of the mouthfeel. For me, very much a full-bodied beer, kind of mid-range to bottom end of full-bodied. The carbonation is very, very smooth. The mouthfeel is it's some kind of mix of like oily and slick, but also very, very creamy. And I do really like that about this one. So yeah, lovely big sort of oily, fruity kind of characters to this one. I mean, in terms of IBU, it's probably 0 IBU technically, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 5 to 10 or something like that. The malt base, like we said, has a wee bit of dryness underneath, smoothness in the middle, and then a real like creaminess on top with a lot of sweetness, the vanilla and the kind of brown sugars and stuff mixed into this one. The maple syrup incidentally comes out a lot more into the aftertaste with this beer. But then yeah, on the fruity side of things, the mango and the banana very much take a back seat. The cherry is sort of almost engulfing them and giving you a quite juicy character to the beer. And then yeah, you have the blackberry and the blueberry in this one giving you the wee bit of sharpness. But all in all, lovely beer, this one, and I'm really glad that I got to try this. So I'm looking forward to the other one because it's going to be a peach style. So yeah, that's also in this little blues mini series that they're doing. But yeah, this one was the Calypso Blues, an 8.3% Imperial fruited smoothie sour with blackberry, blueberry, cherry, mango and banana, with maple syrup, golden syrup and vanilla added into it. Beautiful beer, this one, as I would expect from one Drop Brewing. But let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from one Drop Brewing as well. And we will definitely return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, Slange, Skål, cheers, and I'll catch you guys in the next review. Ciao just now.